Being able to acquire new customers on cold traffic with Google Shopping ads is the most lucrative skill in e-commerce. And the reason is simple. A good Google Shopping campaign lets you easily acquire new customers at scale. So you can operate on growth mode instead of survival mode. And if you learn how to get customers on cold traffic profitably, you put $1 in and get $2, $3, and even up to $13 out. Like this client here who saw a 13.3x return on ad spend on a 24K investment to make 330K in revenue. Or this e-commerce brand who we helped transform 14K into 171K to get a 12.2x return on ad spend in a little over 3 months. We even built a $3.4 million e-com store from scratch using Google Ads and saw a 10.5x return on ad spend on just 322K spent, just to prove that it isn't luck. And 90% of our traffic actually came from Google. Knowing that results like those are possible, why isn't everyone scaling with Google Shopping? And the reason is because they just don't know how to. So instead of trying different things with unpredictable results, lowering ad spend on low quality traffic, or being stuck in the dark on how to run your ads, I'm going to show you in this full 1-hour course the complete A to Z on Google Shopping. Everything from what Google Shopping is at its core and why you need to be using it right now, how to use negative keywords the right way to save tens of thousands in your budget, how to easily set up and implement all the techie backend stuff that will literally make the difference between you breaking even or being able to scale, and a literal step-by-step walkthrough on how we set up shopping campaigns that see a 13.3x return on ad spend, and as a bonus, how we optimize and scale our shopping campaigns. But if you can't sit down through the entirety of this video to watch this video and learn something that will potentially make you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars like it has for ourselves and some of our clients, I'm sorry, but you're probably not going to make it. If you've Googled your favorite brands on Google before, your favorite e-commerce brands, be looking for some of your favorite products that are on e-commerce stores, you would have seen Google Shopping. Everyone's usually pretty familiar with what Google Shopping is. We've used the example here of Nike Air runners. And as you can see the shopping ads that display across the top here, and people pay to show up there prominently. So people pay to show up amongst these listings and they pay per click. There's a number of factors that go into how much they pay. But essentially, people pay to show up as high as possible for certain search terms or keywords, and in Google Shopping there, and you can see the ads there. How does Google Shopping targeting work? In Facebook, you have certain audience targeting. In Google search ads, you have specific keywords that you're targeting. With Google Shopping, it's a little bit different. There is keywords that you target, but you don't directly target them. So things such as your product title, your price, your product category, they're all absorbed by Google, and then they actually put your products in front of the most relevant audience based on those attributes. As a loose example, if your product title has the word runner within it, it will show for runner-based searches. The idea of Google is to be as relevant as possible for the user, so it wants to show them the products that they're actually searching for. So it'll take into account your product titles, your price, your images, your product category. So obviously that would be category there would be sneakers, and there's some other back-end attributes which we'll cover later. As I said, there's no keywords in Google Shopping, right? So you do not set up keywords to target like search ads. So if you're not familiar with Google search ads, they're basically just a text-based ad you see on Google. And with those ads, you actually specifically target specific keywords that you want to target. So if I wanted to target gym in Melbourne, I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, and I wanted to target people looking for 24/7 gym in Melbourne, I can target those specific keywords. With Google Shopping, that doesn't actually happen. You are put in front of specific keywords, but you actually can't specifically target those keywords. Basically, it uses those attributes to put your products in front of an audience, and then you can check what keywords you're showing up for in the search terms section. So that's a term that you'd want to get familiar with here, because we're going to use search terms and keywords interchangeably. They mean the same thing. Search terms is just basically what people are searching in when they see your ads, and we'll take you through that. So they use your data feed in order to target specific keywords to show up for them. So your data feed involves attributes like your product title of that nature. So if there's no keywords, how do you refine your targeting, right? Because we don't want to just let Google do all the work for us, because it'll put us in front of some things that we don't want to be in front of. What if we're showing up for keywords that we don't want to show up for? So yes, there are no keywords that we specifically define that we want to target, but we can exclude certain terms from showing. So if we're selling sneakers and we keep showing up for high heels related search terms or keywords, we can actually exclude the high heel keywords from our campaigns so we don't have to show up for them anymore. So that's how you refine your targeting, and it actually gets better and better over time. So the more refining you do in the initial period, let's say the 30 to 45 days, the better your campaign will be over time, because you're going to exclude all those irrelevant searches and only have the really relevant ones. So we briefly ran over this already, but what are search terms? Search terms are the keywords that our products are showing up for. So when our products are displaying and when we're paying for these clicks, we can actually see which keywords we're actually paying for and how many clicks those keywords have got. We've blurred out the keywords here, but these are just the search terms. As I said, interchangeably use that word with keywords. It means the same thing, right? So here's the keywords here, and you can see the cost associated with the keywords. You can see the average cost per click. You can see the CTR, the impressions that clicks. As we can see here, this one spent $620, has generated $1,400 conversion value in revenue, and then so on and so forth. You got to keep a close eye on this and make sure you're not paying for any irrelevant clicks, because once you exclude those irrelevant clicks over a long enough period of time, you'll only show up for the really relevant stuff. Now, briefly, we're going to run through understanding Google Shopping options. So you got your budget. So Google compares your budget to other competitors in the auction. So if you got a higher budget, you're going to get more data quicker. If you got a lower budget, you're going to get less data and you're going to get it slower, right? So your budget gets taken into account with the Google Shopping auctions. Your bids get taken into account. So it compares your bid to other advertisers in the auction. So if you got a higher bid, obviously you're going to rank higher. However, other things come into this, your data feed and assets, which we'll cover later on, but that's your product titles. So if you have an optimized data feed, which will take you through, you pay lower CPCs. If you have an unoptimized data feed, you'll pay higher CPC. And then you've got quality score. So this defines how well your ad quality compares to other advertisers. You want to aim for at least a 7. Most of the times that's in relation to search ads, but this is how the Google auction works. And then you've got ad rank here as well, which is calculated based on your bid amount, the quality of your ads and landing page, and the ad rank threshold and things like that. Basically the ad rank threshold. If there's no competitors in the auction, how much are you paying per click based on what Google determines is minimum threshold to get a click in that industry. And then the competitiveness of an auction. So the algorithm takes into account a number of things, as you can see here, the context of the person's search, whether they're likely to buy, the expected impact of your assets, so your images and things like that. So it's basically just very algorithmic. So it's not just budget and bid. You can't just have a really high budget, have really high bids. And we'll take you through exactly how to improve your ad rank, how to improve your data feed and quality score in order to still rank really high whilst not having to just jack your bids, jack your budget and pay as much as possible. Now, why you should use Google Shopping in 2024. Shopping is the highest ROI campaign for e-commerce, and that's no surprise because it's literally designed for e-commerce brands. We've generated millions of revenue for our own stores and also our clients using Google Shopping. The reason that Google Shopping is so important is because typically this campaign type attracts users with a strong intent to purchase. So it's a comparison platform because people are actively searching for specific products and comparing the prices before they even make a purchase. So they can actually see your competitors' prices. They have high buying intent, the people that are on this platform or looking at these things. And you would understand that as a consumer probably. As I said, it's literally designed for e-commerce. So this campaign type is only e-commerce brands can run this. If you're in an e-commerce store, 50 to 70% of your spend should be on shopping. Some unique cases where you can have more spend on other platforms like YouTube, demand gen. Typically, most e-commerce stores will spend majority of their budget on Google Shopping, a little bit on other campaign types, but majority on Google Shopping. So as you can see here, these are all physical products, an example of Google Shopping, which we've used again here. This is one thing that I don't think too many people are talking about. I think it's the biggest lever pull, especially for people that are probably a little bit more well-seasoned when it comes to e-commerce. You can allocate 100% of spend to new customers with Google Shopping. And what do I mean by that? In 2024, there's a lot of automated campaign types, right? So there's, performance max campaigns, which is basically Google's new shiny car. It basically has all of Google Ads campaign types in the one. So Google search ads, YouTube ads, demand gen ads, display ads, shopping ads. And it basically is an automated campaign that doesn't require any manual adjustment, but it does have some flaws, Performance Max, right? So if you're an e-commerce store that's driving up a heap of traffic from Pinterest or Meta, or you have a heap of organic traffic, or you have a heavy traffic from an external source that's not Google. If Google's not your primary traffic source, if you're setting up a Performance Max campaign, what can actually happen is it can just retarget that traffic from other external sources and just basically cannibalize all that traffic. So instead of focusing on new customers and using Google as a new customer acquisition platform, it can just basically be focusing a lot of the spend on retargeting your Facebook visitors. And you're just basically spending more money on the same customers. So it's a little bit of a complex subject, but essentially with Google Shopping, it doesn't have any of that inbuilt retargeting like Performance Max or other campaign types where it's retargeting your meta visitors, right? Google Shopping does not have any inbuilt retargeting. It will not retarget your meta visitors and it will not cannibalize your traffic from other sources, even organic, because we can focus it exclusively on new customers. There is a chance that you get some existing customers coming through your shopping, but majority of your spend will be focused on new customers, right? So that's one of the real benefits of this. And I suggest running Google Shopping if you are someone that has heavy external traffic from Pinterest, from organic, from Meta, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you're getting it from. Don't run PMax, run Google Shopping. You can have control of exactly who clicks on your website. So as we said before with the negative keywording, you can exclude irrelevant traffic and then you can make sure that you're only showing up for relevant traffic. Your Google Shopping campaigns are going to get better and better over time. And one of the benefits of this with Google Shopping that you can actually exclude this traffic is you can't do that as well with a Performance Max campaign or other campaign types within Google. Even on Facebook, you can't exclude traffic as well as you can on Google Shopping because you can quite literally just get a complete audience or a complete keyword that people are searching and just remove that entirely. So you can really hone in and get the most relevant traffic possible. So I think that's a real added benefit of Google Shopping, more control over your budget. Now, it is your job to show up when customers are looking for you. So this is one thing that's not talked about quite a lot, but if people are searching in for fire pits online, you need to be showing up. Because what are we doing as a business if we're not showing up when people are literally searching for our product? If we're advertising on other platforms, typically you're going towards colder customers. On Google Shopping, these people are quite literally looking for what exactly you sell. And if you're not showing up, your competitors will be showing up and they'll be stealing potential customers that you could have had otherwise. Now, I spoke about the data feed before. So remember when I spoke about product titles and making sure that you have that optimized. And I also spoke about Google Shopping targeting and how we don't basically define the specific keywords that we want to target with Google Shopping. We let the product titles and images, and basically Google takes into account some attributes from our store and then targets customers or keywords based on that. So that's called the data feed. So your data feed consists of product titles, images, a few other things which we'll run through here, but you can actually optimize this data feed and you can do it automatically. It doesn't actually involve too much nuance. It doesn't involve too much manual adjustment, and it can actually have a heavy impact on how much you actually pay for your CPCs, right? Which will have an impact on how much you actually pay for your traffic. So an optimized merchant center. So you might have heard of Google Merchant Center. That's where your data feed is housed. Optimized Merchant Center data feed is the most critical component of your Google Shopping or PMax performance. I put PMax in there as well because that has Google Shopping inside of it, but ignore that for now. So as we can see here, we've got a little illustration. So we've got the data feed. If you've got a poor data feed, you're going to pay higher CPCs, which is going to be a hike. So customer acquisition cost. Your costs are just going to be higher if it's unoptimized. If you've got an optimized data feed, you got cheaper CPCs and a lower CAC, so lower cost. So you're going to get more traffic for less money if you have an optimized data feed. We're going to use an example here. Let's say you have $100 a day of budget and your feed is not optimized. So you'd be paying a higher CPC for that $100 a day of budget. By fixing your data feed, you'll be able to reduce those CPCs significantly. However, Google will still want to spend that entire $100 a day of budget. So you'll have reduced CPCs, but it'll still be spending $100, meaning you'll have more traffic for the same amount of money. So it'll just find more traffic for you to exhaust that budget, meaning that your current budget of $100 a day will be netting you far more clicks if you just fixed your data feed. By fixing your data feed, having an optimized data feed, it allows you to get more clicks for the same amount of money. So what is a data feed? I've briefly been over it, but basically it is a file that contains products that you want to advertise on Google. So you've got a Shopify store. The data feed is just certain attributes that you've got inputted on your Shopify store or your e-commerce store, and the data feed just represents those attributes being sent to Google Ads. Product feed is basically just a file that contains products that you want to advertise on Google, which is primarily hosted on Google Merchant Center. So there is an abundance of information that you can include in your feed, and the more information you provide, the better your campaigns will perform. Now, don't worry about this because it seems overwhelming, but you can use apps to just automatically do this. But data feed includes attributes such as your product title. So what your product titles, what is your price, your ID, so SKU numbers, barcodes, things like that, your product photos, your description, so it will crawl your descriptions, your availability, so is it in stock or out of stock, your brand name, your GTIN, which is just another word for barcodes if you've got those inputted on the back end, and then condition, which is just new, used, or refurbished. So as you can see here, we've got the back end and the front end. That'll probably make a little bit more sense later, but front end just basically means what the customer sees. So they're going to see the product titles as we showed the example of before in the Google Shopping. They see the product titles, they see the images, they see the price, sometimes they see the category, and then most of the time they're not seeing the product description, the product type. That's more of a back end thing that you'll see. Now, data feed explained in greater detail, but as I said, it's a file containing information about the products that you want to advertise on Google. So as we can see here in the illustration, you got the e-commerce store, you got the data feed app, and that's being sent to Google Merchant Center here. Google Merchant Center. It's basically the platform that sits between your e-commerce store and Google Ads, and it houses your products. So it's just essentially the middleman between your e-commerce store and Google Ads. Now, data feed app, I spoke of before how you can save time by automatically inputting these data feed attributes using a data feed app. Data feed app is essentially just an app that transfers your product data from your e-commerce store to Google Merchant Center. There are a few options to choose from, but from our experience, data feed watch is quite good. The example we're going to use is actually using Simproses with this particular test store. These apps are super easy. And the reason that you want to use these apps is because if you're not using these apps, instead of just doing it automatically and just connecting it to your website, you'll have to upload CSV files of your products to Google Merchant Center, and no one wants to mess with CSV files. But here's a quick example here. So you got your e-commerce store, your data feed, go into the data feed app, go into Google Merchant Center and go into Google Ads, right? So your data feed is just your product attributes, and this can be done automatically. So we got here key components of high performing data feed, and this is the front end that we're going to run through. So product titles are one of the most important attributes to get right within your strategy. I'm going to take you through some examples here, but the more detailed and focused your title is, the better your shopping results will be. So make sure to do the following 5 things, right? You want to focus on descriptive elements of your product. You want to structure your titles with a keyword focus. You don't want to put your brand name first unless you're really well known or you're selling a really well-known brand. You want to include USPs in the title. For example, for skincare, for oily skin, for arthritis. If people are searching for that, make sure to include it in your product titles. If that's a reason that people buy from you, include it in your product titles. Include other elements such as size and color. So this is a good example below. And I just want to preface this is you don't have to include everything that I've mentioned here. You don't have to just make your product titles as long as possible, putting every keyword in it that you possibly can, but just do it in a way that makes sense, right? So this one here, I quite like this. In the image, you can see that you can actually choose between a number of colors. So that's quite good just straight off the bat. That's not even related to the title. But they've got silk pillowcase there, which is obviously a descriptive element of their product. It's not just a pillowcase, it's a silk pillowcase. But what they've also done is they've included a USP in there. So for hair and skin health is really, really good. But what they may have noticed by including that USP is it might not have been a USP originally, right? So they might have noticed in their keywords, in their search terms, when they started spending on this, that people were actually searching in hair and skin health pillowcase. So then they've included in the product title to increase the click-through rate for those particular buyers. But it is USP regardless. And they've also included size. So as you can see here, standard size, 20 inches by 26 inches. So that's another element that they've included there. They've already included the colors inside the image here. So that's a really good example of a well-optimized product title. And as you can see, it's not that complicated. Just do it in a way that makes sense. So product title best practices. As I said, detail matters. Make sure to be as detailed as possible and include keywords that you think would be relevant for your customers. So make sure to include all key elements, such as brand, color, size, and other descriptors. But here's a good example of someone that has an unoptimized product title versus a brand that has a really good optimized product title. So I'm going to use brand one as the example first, right? This is relatively bare bones. We're not even going to talk about the image because that's really basic, but the product title here is Ardor Silk Pillowcase White. So there's no real descriptive elements. There's no USPs. Well, descriptive element would be the silk pillowcase. So there is a descriptive element there, but there's no USP. So like for hair and skin health, they don't have the size in there either. And they do have the color there. But I like the product image that the other person used. It helped me understand that there's a wide range of colors that they can choose from, right? But I would say that this is a unoptimized product title because it doesn't involve as much detail as compared to their competitors. So this is a direct competitor here. So this one is a large white silk pillowcase for hair and skin health by Mulberry, as I've already been through. Even has the size there, large. This doesn't even have size, so I don't even know what size it is. Brand 2 title has far more detail and therefore is more likely to have lower CPCs, higher click-through rate, and higher conversion rates because not only are they going to pick up the people that are looking for a silk pillowcase, they're going to pick up the people that are looking for a hair and skin silk pillowcase or just hair and skin pillowcase. So people are going to search for those specific things differently, even though they're looking for the same product. They're also going to increase their click-through rate by having a solid image there with all the colors, as well as the size. So I know what size I'm getting. I know exactly how big that is. That is a far more optimized product title. I just thought I'd compare those alongside each other. So as you can see here, these guys have included in here 100% pure. So that's obviously something that they've identified, a keyword that has volume. So people are actually looking for 100% pure silk pillowcase. So they've actually included that in the product title there. So you'll be able to notice some keywords that you're actually ranking for and you might be even converting for that you wouldn't have otherwise thought about inside your search terms. Then you'll be able to actually include them in on your product titles. So product images, this is a really good one, right? So selecting the product image is crucial. It should be high quality. It should align with the product variant. So just making sure that it matches what the landing page is going to land on. And it can't have any distracting text overlays. So that's illegal on Google. You'll just be banned for having any text overlays, any promo overlays, because they don't allow it. The product images are the initial point of contact for the customers. It captures their eyes, right, firstly. So a visually captivating image, it's going to draw in potential customers far better than something that's not visually captivating, right? It's going to significantly boost your CTR and your conversion rates because you're going to have more relevant traffic. Now, there's a couple of ways of going about this. You can have lifestyle versus white background. This one here would be a white background image. See, it's just got a white background. It's got the product and white background. This would be a lifestyle image. Probably this one's a better descriptor. So this is a lifestyle image. So you can actually see the product being used on a bed in a real house. So that's a lifestyle image. So lifestyle, you can test against white background there. And that's something that people typically do. UGC imagery. So this one's less common, but if you've got any UGC imagery from your customers that you feel like using, if it's really high quality, you can use that. But this is the one I really want to talk about, USP imagery. So for this particular set of pillowcases here, the one I actually clicked on used this strategy. So you might be able to tell which one I'm going to talk about already, but the USP of this particular brand was that they had the silkiest white pillowcases or the silkiest silk pillowcases, right? And they actually displayed that in their image. So the one I'm talking about here is this Scosa silk pillowcase. So you can actually see in this image that they're really accentuating that silkiness and the quality of that silk pillowcase. And I actually did click on that. And as you can see, they got 8,000 reviews. So a lot of other people did too. So if you're selling something that has a really unique USP, so you're the silkiest silk pillowcase, really accentuate that and make an emphasis of it and also test it. You don't have to use that strategy all the time, but you can test using, white background or lifestyle background, or you can use USP imagery there, but that's a really good strategy to use. And obviously it's working quite well here. Now pricing. So it's imperative to compare your prices to others in market, but it's not imperative to be the lowest price in the market. So I want to make an emphasis of that. Google Shopping is a comparison platform. So people are comparing your price to your competitors and users have far more of an apples to apples approach. Because as you can see here, I'm looking for a silk pillowcase, but I can see everyone's price. So I could choose to buy the cheapest one. I actually didn't buy the cheapest one when I bought this, but people do see your price and they do compare it to others. So if you've got someone that they're competing quite well with you and they're a couple of dollars cheaper, you could consider matching that or matching their promotion, things like that. It's important to be competitive on price, but you don't always need to be the lowest price. So as you can see here, I went and Googled this and I chose the second most expensive product because they were able to stand out by using that USP imagery. So a good way to use your investigative research here is look at, okay, your competitors might be cheaper than you, but how can we differentiate ourselves? Don't always have to be the cheapest, but try and differentiate yourself if you are more expensive, just like they have here, because they've accentuated that they're a premium product by having the silkiest pillowcase possible. Looking at competitors, so as I've already explained, we should be checking whether they're using different images to us, using promotions and sales, using reviews in their PLAs. So these are called PLAs, product listing ads. It's a jargony term, but if they're using reviews, we want to set those up as well. See below here, a lot of brands are running a sale promotion. It might make sense for us to run a promotion as well. Not always the case. You don't always want to just match what your competitors are doing. Key components of a high-performing data feed on the back end. These things are quite important to know. You don't always have to have them optimized to the nth degree, though. I want to make an emphasis of that. So let's just run through the key components of a high-performing data feed on the back end. You got the product category here. So this is Google's taxonomy. So when you click on this link here, it'll take you to Google taxonomy here. So this is just how Google categorizes products, right? So if I'm selling fireplaces, as we can see here, home and garden fireplaces. But if I'm selling firewood and fuel, instead of using fireplace and wood stove accessories as my product category, I would use firewood and fuel to be as specific as possible. As we can see, Google defines that as a category. And by being as specific as possible with our category, we can make sure that it puts us in front of the most relevant audience. So it's a bit of an in the weeds sort of thing. Product type. So this is on your back end here. So this is not defined by that Google taxonomy. This is not a Google specific thing. It's just basically how you want to define your product type. So you might have cold plungers that you sell. You might have saunas that you sell. Maybe you have barrel saunas and you just want to have that as the product type. The reason you want to set these up essentially is so that when you feed through products on your Google ads, you can feed through the right products. If you want to set up a campaign for just your barrel saunas, you can feed just the barrel saunas through on your Google shopping campaign. So that's why we have product types. So product description. So this is more of a tedious task. However, it helps Google define more relevant searches for your product as it crawls this information from your website. So your app will do this automatically, but if you do notice that you haven't got at least 5,000 characters, try and fill in your 5,000 characters for your products. Probably a little bit harder to do if you've got heaps and heaps and heaps of SKUs. So probably not a real needle moving task, but if you've only got like a small number of SKUs, try and use ChatGPT to make up as much real estate as possible. You want to take up 5,000 characters at least. More characters are better. It's not a huge needle moving thing. However, if you really want to dial in your data feed as much as possible, it will really help. Custom labels. So this is the last bit here that I'm going to define. So remember I spoke of before with product types, and the reason that it's important is if you wanted to set up a barrel saunas campaign, you can feed through just your barrel saunas products very easily in your Google ads. You don't have to specifically look for those barrel saunas. Custom labels is kind of the same thing, but it's more custom, right? So you can actually assign specific labels to products inside your Merchant Center or inside your data feed app, like stock levels, like margin, like price point, like promotions or sale or seasonality. And then you can just feed through those specific products that might be of a specific price point. You might want to focus just on products above $500. Then you can feed through just the products above $500 to that specific campaign. You can do that using custom labels. You can do that by margin. So you might have specific products that have a better margin than others. You want to define that in the custom labels. You can do that through the app and it's quite simple to set up. You can just send it through to your Google ads and then you'll have those specific products that have the good margin in that specific campaign that you want to focus on. You do it with stock levels too. We don't do this too often, but some people might have really low stock levels. So they'll whack a custom label on it. Then they'll be able to feed through those low stock level products to another campaign and spend far less on them. Or if they've got high stock levels, they do the opposite, right? If you're not familiar with Google ads, it sounds somewhat complicated. It's really not. It's just a way of sending products to your Google ads in a way that ensures you can do it much more efficiently. We're going to just show you quickly the data feed app here. So on this e-commerce store here, they're using tROAS, which is a data feed app. Basically, you just connect this up to your Shopify store. So you just download the app, connect it to your Shopify store, and then all your products will be housed in here. So as we can see, some of the products are disapproved. However, this is where your products will show up, and then you can do bulk editing here. So you can, assign custom labels like we just spoke of. You can assign product types in bulk. You can assign product condition in bulk. You can assign tax categories, different size systems, things like that, but typically don't do much of that. You can assign promotions. You can do all that in bulk. So as you can see that everything I went through in the last sort of 10 minutes is quite detailed and sounds quite overwhelming, but these apps just allow you to do it with far more ease. So this is where your products are housed. You connect it up with your Shopify store here. So once you set this up, if you upload more products to your store, you can just resync it with your Shopify store. It usually syncs every 24 hours anyway, but this is basically the Shopify tROAS app. And then you connect this to your Google ads as well, which is just basically your Google shopping settings here. And you make sure just on the right-hand side here that you can actually connect that up. But this is pretty basic. And then inside here, this is the Merchant Center here. So this is where the products get sent to and they show up in here. So as you can see, all of our products approved inside here, and we can edit these products in here as well. So if we want to edit specific specific products. We can of course do it in the symposium app, but you can do it inside Google Merchant Center here as well. So we can just click on edit product. And once we're inside here, you can obviously change the image. You can change the condition here. You can assign different custom labels. You can obviously select different product categories. So you can add the different product categories in here. You can actually search up your product category. Maybe we're going through that Google taxonomy. All the boring stuff is in here, but you can optimize your data feed through doing this. But most of the time, if you've got a data feed app like Symproses or data feed watch, it should do it automatically for you and have pretty much 95% of the information for you. Okay guys, now we're going to set up a shopping campaign inside the Google Ads account. So once you head over to Google Ads, once you've set up your accounts, you should be able to head inside here. You'll be taken to a page that looks like this with the overview. You want to hit new campaign and click new campaign there. We want to focus on sales because we're an e-commerce store. We don't want to focus on anything else but sales. We're going to hit continue. So just here, we just make sure that that says purchases and not anything else. It needs to say purchases because we want to optimize towards purchases. And that's basically what that means. Now, as you can see here, we've got so many campaigns to choose from: demand gen, video, search, performance max, display. Shopping is what we want to focus on. And we don't want to focus on any other campaign for this example. Ours is already connected, our Merchant Center here, but if your Merchant Center is not showing up, you just need to click inside the search here and make sure it is showing up. Now, it's trying to push us towards a performance max campaign because that's Google's new shiny car. I spoke of this at the start of the video, how it's basically all of those campaign types in one. So as you can see, these are Google campaign types. Performance max is search, video, demand gen, display, and shopping all in one. As I said to you at the start of the video, we don't want to set that up to begin with. We just want to start with standard shopping. We just click on standard shopping campaign here, and then we're going to hit continue. Now enter a campaign name. So what I'm going to call this is I'm going to call it shopping test, and then we put in brackets cold. With Google Shopping, we want to start with either manual CPC or maximize clicks. So typically I start with maximize clicks because maximize clicks will allow us to get data quicker. I know on other platforms like Meta, maximize clicks or maximize traffic can be really poor campaigns. On Google, it's quite good in comparison to those platforms because there's already warm intent coming there. So it's just going to maximize the click. It's not going to be as good as, a target ROAS strategy once you get to that point, but we don't switch to that until we get to 30 conversions in a month. We'll go through that afterwards. But you want to start with maximize clicks. You're still going to get very, very relevant traffic. And essentially the reason that you want to do this is because you want to get as much traffic as possible, as quickly as possible. For the amount of budget that you're actually spending, you want to get as much traffic as possible because you want to refine that traffic using the negative keywords. You can set a maximum cost per click bid limit. I don't set that. I think it's not necessary to set up at the start. If you want to set up like a maximum cost per click bid limit, it just means that you're telling Google, hey, maximize my clicks. If you have it set as $2, don't spend over $2 on a click, right? I wouldn't recommend setting up at the start. For this campaign, we'll set up at $100 a day budget. The campaign priority. So we want to set this up at high. For most cold campaigns, you want to set it up as high. These priorities are basically just how active the campaign is. So if you have it as low, it's just going to be far less active. By having it set to high, it's going to focus on being as active as possible. We want to exclude this, so make sure that's unticked. We only want to display on Google Shopping, not Google Search Partners. We want to make sure that we're focusing on Canada only for this particular account. And we want to make sure, this is a really important one, presence or interest. So people in, regularly in, or who've shown interest in your locations. I wouldn't set that up like that. So I would click presence, people in or regularly in your locations, because they've shown interest in our locations. We don't want them to see our ads. That just means that basically someone that's, wants to travel to Canada might still see our ads, which we don't want. Start date, so just leave the date today. And we're just going to call this cold test. Now I'm going to create the campaign here. So as we can see, here's the campaign. We have the ad group level here. So this is just kind of like if you're using Meta campaigns, it's like the ad set. And then inside here, you have the ads, or for a shopping example, you have the products. So you have the specific products that you want to have inside this campaign. So you can have all products inside the campaign. You can start with having your best selling products. It's totally up to you. If you go at a smaller budget, I would just focus on your best selling products. However, for this example, I'll show you guys exactly how we're only going to target a specific amount of products in here. Instead of using all products for this example, you can actually just click on add subdivision and you can actually only add in specific products. So if I wanted to just focus on cold plunge, I can actually just click on cold plunge and just focus on the cold plunge products. If I wanted to just focus on infrared saunas, I can just focus on the infrared saunas products and then save, right? So I can define the specific product types that I want to focus on instead of just focusing on all products. If you're a reseller, you can do it by brand. So that might be a number of brands that you sell, like this client. You can do it by item ID. Now, item ID is just each specific product. So if you want to just focus on 2 products, you can just go by item ID. You can search up the specific item IDs that you want to find or the specific products that you want to find, and you can just focus on those specific products. For this example, we're just going to do, let's say, for example, infrared sauna. And we're going to save it our editing bits. And as you can see here, only our infrared sauna is showing inside this campaign now. However, we've also got this little thing here that says everything else in all products. And that's active because as you can see here, it's got the little green button. So everything else in all products is also active. We don't want that to be the case because we only want to focus on infrared saunas. So we just hover over it, press exclude. Now we can add some audiences to our shopping campaigns. So as we go in here, we can add audience segments to the campaign level. Now we want to do this as observation. We don't want to do this as targeting. targeting. If you set this up as targeting, it will only target people in that audience. If you set it up as observation, you're basically allowing Google to go and find customers for you, but still look outside of the audience that you're defining, which we recommend doing with shopping campaigns. We're selling saunas, so let's just type in sauna as an audience. Saunas is not going to show it specifically, but we might get something like beauty and wellness. So that might be something like an affinity audience like that. You might have sports and fitness, like that might be a relevant audience for you. Once again, this is just observation. So it's just going to observe these audiences. And the more that you add in, you can actually look at which audiences are actually converting quite well. So there's no specific audience for saunas. You can probably look at doing something like spas and beauty services. That's probably not that relevant actually. So just keep it as sport and fitness and beauty and wellness. We can also do pools and spas because people that have pools and spas also can have saunas as well. So we can just use that as observation there. Turns out there's not a whole lot of audiences for saunas there inside Google Ads. However, you can just use relevant audience or adjacent audiences that would make sense alongside the niche as well. So we're just going to save those as examples, and we've got the audiences set up inside here. And you can actually set up bid adjustments here, which we'll go through later, but basically you'll be able to see this data over time and see the cost associated with each audience, right? So you'll be able to see, oh, okay, this specific audience is converting at a higher rate than others. This specific audience is not converting at that bit of a rate, and then you can remove that audience. You can also set up in here your device spend. So you can just go on the left-hand side here to when and where ads showed, and then go to devices. And you can actually see the spend on a device level. So you can see how much is being spent on computers, mobile phones, and tablets once this campaign starts to spend. I'm going to pause this campaign for now because we don't want it to spend. And then you can set up bid adjustments. So you can bid higher or lower on computers or mobile phones or tablets. That's the main thing that you want to set up. There is negative keywords, as we spoke of before, which I'll take you through it in a moment. But that's basically how you want to set up your Google Shopping campaigns. I did say that this was a cold campaign, and I will go through exactly why that's called a cold campaign shortly. Now, I spoke about negative keywording in that last piece there when we were going through the account, but I'm going to take you guys through how to master negative keywording, because mastering this skill is essentially the difference between you being successful with Google Shopping or not. And that's not even fluff. It quite literally is the difference between you being successful and not being successful with Google Shopping. So as I said before, Google Shopping targeting works by just using your product feed, your data feed, so the attributes that we spoke of before, using that and then just showing your products to the specific audience. As a reminder, so let's say, for example, your product title has runner in it. It will show you to runner-based keywords or sneaker-based keywords if you have sneaker in there. However, we can check these keywords inside the search terms as we went through before. So you can look through your search term report and you can actually see the keywords that you're showing up for. And then it is your job to negative keyword out the bad search terms. So you can have search terms that don't convert that well for you, and it is your job to negative keyword those out. So as we can see here, we can see the cost associated with each keyword and what the revenue is associated with the keyword as well. You must keep a close eye on this, especially in the first sort of few weeks or even days after launch, because you're going to show up for quite a number of irrelevant things and you're going to have to negative keyword them out. So you don't want to waste any money. And as I said, this will get better over time as you spend more time on curating and optimizing that list. You will stop showing up for irrelevant stuff and only show up for relevant stuff. Now, there's three match types of negative keywords. So you have negative broad match keyword. So basically you just put in the negative keyword running shoes. For example, you want to get rid of running shoes because you're selling high heels. So you can just use the negative broad match. And what that basically means is your ad won't show for search that contains all of your negative keyword terms, even if the terms are in a different order. So as you can see here, could an ad show, if we negative keyworded out that as broad match, running shoes, could an ad show? It could still show for running shoe, could still show for blue tennis shoes, but it won't show for blue running shoes, shoes running, or running shoes. So it's more of a broader keyword pool when you're using negative broad match, right? Now we have negative phrase match. This is kind of like, instead of just doing running shoes like that, you actually put quotation marks around the running shoes when you negative keyword it out, which will actually show you how to do. But basically with negative phrase match, it just involves any phrase that involves the word running shoes. So your ad won't show if a search contains the exact keyword terms in the same order. So as we can see here, we're doing running shoes as phrase match. We'll still show for running shoe, we'll still show for blue tennis shoes, we'll still show for shoes running, but we won't show for blue running shoes or running shoes because it's those words in that exact order being used in a phrase. Basically, it just means you're excluding that phrase in general. Negative exact match. So if we excluded running shoes as exact match, we're excluding only people that are explicitly searching for running shoes. So we can still show up for blue running shoes, but we can't show up for people just searching running shoes. So that's essentially the difference between the three. So just think of it like broad is quite broad in terms of the keyword pool that it targets. It kind of targets the meaning behind what you're trying to remove. Phrase is any phrase that involves the word that you're trying to remove, and then exact match is just exactly what the person has searched you're excluding. You can do this at the campaign level, or you can do this as lists. So you can have negative keyword lists, which you apply to the campaigns. We typically don't use lists as often. You might have like a universal list, so you just might remove all the words like cheap and free and used and things like that if you're not selling used goods. Then you can just do it at the campaign level too. So we can actually take you through exactly how to do this. So as you can see, the examples that we've used here, we've got negative keyword phrase match, which is with those quotation marks around it, negative keyword exact match, which has got the brackets around it, and then negative keyword broad match, which would be with neither the brackets or the quotation marks around it. So that's exactly how you define those. We'll take inside the account here where you can actually set up or see your search terms, and you can see the cost associated with these search terms. This is a test campaign that we ran selling fireplaces and fire bowls. And basically what I'm going to do is actually show you the search terms that came up when we ran this test campaign to show you how we can negative keyword some of these terms out, right? So we've got fire pits here and fireplaces. And this is a real live account where we set up a test campaign. And as we can see here, we've got a number of keywords showing up. Now, how do we negative keyword these out? We basically just have to click on words that we want to get rid of, click on these, and then we can add them as negative keywords. And we can do it at the campaign level. We can do it at the ad group level as well. And if you're negative keywording things out of the campaign level, those keywords are not going to show up in this campaign at all. Now, how do we determine that there's any problems with these particular keywords? So this one here, we're showing up for gas fireplace a number of times. This brand does not actually sell gas fireplaces. They sell electric fireplaces. So we've got these search terms here. As we can notice, we're showing up for gas fireplace, gas fireplace, gas fireplace. We don't want to show up for gas fireplace. However, we could probably go through this all day and find all the gas fireplace terms and just negative keyword them out as exact match. So the default is exact match. Now, remember, as I went through exact match means we're getting rid of that exact term in that exact order only. So if I was to negative keyword out by gas fireplace as exact match, I'd still show up for all these other related ones. If I was just doing that one, I'd still show up for people searching a gas fireplace. But the real issue here, we need to find the root cause of the issue. So the root cause of the issue is the word gas amongst all of these. So can we just get rid of the word gas as phrase match, and that gets rid of all gas related terms? So instead of clicking on all of them and doing them as exact match and wasting a bunch of time doing that, you can just click on it like this. If you're noticing that gas is showing up quite a lot, and you can basically just use the word gas and do that as phrase match, because remember, phrase match uses the quotation marks. We do that at the campaign level. Now remember, we're selling electric fireplaces here and fire pits. We don't want to show up for gas fireplaces. So we can use gas, the word gas, as phrase match. And what that actually does is it ensures that anytime someone searches a phrase that involves the word gas, we will not show up. Instead of going through all of those individual keywords and getting rid of all of those gas related keywords, we're just basically removing all that work. You can basically just get rid of the word gas here, and that will save you a bunch of time rather than going through every gas related keyword, negative keywording them out individually, right? So we can just save that, and we're never going to show up for a gas related keyword ever again in this campaign. There is other issues here. These aren't issues because they're unrelated to what we sell, but they're a bit top of funnel. And what I mean by that is someone searching in just the word fire pit, they could be looking for a fire pit, $20 at $50 at $80, $150 or $2,000. There's quite a level of ambiguity there. And so I would call that a top of funnel keyword. It's a very investigative keyword. It's got a level of ambiguity with it. We don't know that they're specifically looking for the products that we sell, which are $2,000 and above. And so I would actually get rid of that as exact match. So anyone exactly looking for fire pit, I do not want to show up for that. However, if someone's looking for outdoor fire pit with gas burner, I can still show up for that, right? Because that's much more specific, and gas burner outdoor fire pits are going to be more expensive. And I want to show up for those searches. I don't really want to show up for just fire pit, because that can be someone looking for an $80 product. And the same with fireplaces. You can get really cheap fireplaces, you get very expensive fireplaces. I do want to show up for things like electric fireplace linear, because we know they're really expensive. Electric fireplace insert 65 inch. That's a really expensive product. You cannot find something for $100 that's electric fireplace insert 65 inch. But for fireplace as just a keyword as exact match, I want to get rid of that at the campaign level. Too much ambiguity related with that, and I don't want to waste too much spend on people that are just sort of investigating. I want to spend as much money on people that are actually looking for the specific products we're selling. And we can define that by just making sure that we're spending on these longer tail keywords. So these keywords that have got 4 or 5 keywords involved with them, right? You don't want to spend on things that are really high level or top of funnel. You want to spend on things that are a little bit more specific in the keywords that they're searching, because they're going to convert at a higher rate. A lot of people ask me, how do I start my budget with shopping campaigns? So budget allocation really varies. There's no right answer to that. The less you spend, the slower that you'll get data to optimize from, the slower you'll actually make sales. If you've got a decent budget, just start off at $100 a day for a particular campaign. But if you're on a budget, start with a smaller budget, but at least $20 per day to get some data going there and be able to make decisions from that data, right? So there's really no real answer that makes sense, but I do recommend at least starting with $20 a day minimum. Even if you want to spend $30K in the first month, just start at $100 a day and optimize from there, and then increase budget over time. Now, this is one of the most probably important subjects when it comes to Google Shopping, and it's called the art of effective shopping campaign segmentation. Segmenting campaigns in Google Ads means just dividing your campaigns into smaller focus campaigns to optimize your targeting, budgeting, and performance. So if you've got shopping campaigns, you don't always just want to set up one shopping campaign that has all your products in it, right? There is reasons that you'd have multiple shopping campaigns, but you shouldn't just have 20 to 30 shopping campaigns just based on, different categories that you've got or different reasons that you've set them up. It's not really necessary. There is reasons to set up different shopping campaigns, and that's what I call segmentation. That's what I'm going to run you through in this video. So you can segment your campaigns by goal. So if you've got products with a different ROAS or CPA that you need, you can segment those by campaigns. So if I got product collection that needs a 10x return on ad spend, and I've got another product collection that needs a 5x return on ad spend, I would separate them by campaign because the bidding and the budget is dedicated at the campaign level. So you can control that bidding and budget at the campaign level. Ensure that you've got your targets in place for those lower return on ad spend products versus those higher return on ad spend products, because you don't want to have them mixed. Best sellers and low performers or mid sellers. So if you've got products that are selling quite well, you can have them in separate campaign. This works really well. Once you get to a point of actually scaling, this is probably the best strategy to use. You want to segment out your best selling products into their own campaign, and then your lower performing products you want to have in the different campaign at less budget to those lower performers and more budget to those best sellers. Now, do it by location as well. So if you sell in multiple markets, definitely split your campaigns by location. So if you're selling in USA, Australia, and Europe, make sure you have a different campaign for each of those markets, because you're going to have a different return on ad spend for each of those markets, meaning you got to allocate your budget differently. So please do set that up. Profit margin. That kind of plays into goal ROAS CPA, but if you've got low margin products and high margin products, make sure you're separating them by campaign, because Google doesn't really care what your margins are. It's just going to sell whatever it can sell. So make sure to set that up. And probably the most important one is brand versus non-brand. So remember how I spoke up before about calling that campaign cold? So that's basically what we're going to do is in that campaign, we're focusing on cold keywords versus your branded keywords. So there's going to be people on Google that are actually specifically searching in your brand name, and then there's going to be people just searching in your product type. So if my brand's name is Joel's Fire Pits, if I'm a good brand, people are going to be searching in Joel's Fire Pit. And then there's going to be people on Google just searching in fire pits that are not aware of Joel's Fire Pits. Now we need to segment out those keywords by campaign, because people that are searching for Joel's Fire Pits, they're going to convert at a higher rate than people just searching fire pits. Because if I'm just searching fire pits, I'm not decided on which particular fire pit brand I want to buy from yet. So I'm less likely to buy than someone searching in Joel's Fire Pits. If I'm searching in Joel's Fire Pits, a brand related term, I'm much more likely to convert because I already know the brand that I want. So we need to segment that out by campaign, and we'll show you exactly how to do that. So I just want to quickly make an emphasis of this, because it's probably the biggest mistake that people make, but it's honestly the most common segmentation issue we see inside campaigns or accounts, right? Is not segmenting your non-brand traffic from your branded traffic. It causes major issues because you'll increase your budget because you think that your cold traffic or your Google performance is really good, but because your branded keywords and your cold keywords are mixed together, when you increase spend, your ROAS drops because there's only a finite amount of people searching for your brand. So as you increase spend, it goes towards those more colder and colder keywords, those more colder and colder audiences, and they'll have less of a return, and that's why your ROAS will drop. That's going to reflect in your performance of your campaign. So you need to know your brand return, which is going to be quite a lot better than your cold return because people are specifically looking for you, versus your cold return. And that'll allow you to up budget with predictability, because if you've got a cold campaign that's meeting your target, as you up spend, you'll actually be able to do it with far more predictability, because it won't be going from brand to cold. It will be going from cold to cold. And if it's achieving that target already, it will still continue to achieve that target as you up your budgets, right? So it's quite a simple concept, just a lot of people don't do it. Another reason to do this as well is it's important to maximize your protection. So it's important to actually show up for your brand when people are searching for your brand on Google, because if you're not showing up, your competitors are. So you're maximizing your protection there and just making sure that you're getting those customers back in your ecosystem. And if you're mixing your brand and cold, it actually hurts your ability to do that profitably and spend as little as possible on brand, like we try and do. Your allocation of budget for branded keywords or your branded shopping campaigns, it should be about 10 to 20% of your budget overall for Google Shopping. And then your cold keywords should be about 80 to 90% of your budget. I'm going to go inside the account here and show you how to set up a branded campaign. And remember, we're going to create a branded campaign now. So we go to sales, the exact same process. Make sure the purchases is there. Make sure we're selecting shopping. Make sure that our Merchant Center account is linked. It should already be linked from our last campaign that we set up. Click standard shopping campaign. Want to click continue. Now we're going to call this shopping test branded, because it's our branded campaign. Remember, before we use maximize clicks, we don't want to use maximize clicks. So we don't want to maximize the amount of clicks we're getting for brand. We want to use manual CPC. And the reason we want to use manual CPC is because we want to control exactly how much we're spending on brands. What Google can sometimes do, we've got branded keywords. It can basically overcharge you for those keywords. By using manual CPC, we're able to control exactly the cost per click that we're expecting to pay. Now, obviously it's going to fluctuate. By manual CPC, we can actually manually adjust the bid and make sure we're paying as little as possible for our branded keywords, which we don't really deserve to be paying a premium on. Now, budget is going to be 10% of our $100, which is the cold campaign budget. Now, this is where it's important. Instead of having a high campaign priority setting like before with that really active campaign, that cold campaign, which you want to be really active in finding as many clicks as possible, as much data as possible. We want to set this to low because we want it to just focus on that real low hanging fruit on those branded keywords. So that's a really important part of this, is make sure you set it up with low default settings. Now we want to untick this again. We don't want to show up for that. Make sure we're doing that device location setting again. So people in or regularly in, not people interested in Canada. Now we just want to call the ad group a branded ad group, branded test. And we want to set our bids, start them off at like $1.50. You can always increase this over time, but just start your bids off at $1.50. I think that's totally fine for most people. You can always reduce this or increase this if you need to. It really varies industry to industry. Some industries require a really high level of competition for branded keywords. So you may have to up this over time, or you may have to decrease it over time. I typically do all products with a branded search campaign or branded shopping campaign. If you're only focusing on a specific subset of products, like a specific collection, like saunas on Google, and that's all you're advertising, just do the saunas. But if you're advertising everything and you've got heaps of campaigns set up, just do your all products included on your branded campaigns here. So that's how you set up a branded campaign, and it's at 10% of budget as compared to your cold campaign. And of course, that low setting is there as well. But there is one more thing that we need to do. And I know I've disabled these campaigns on here. It's just that I don't want them to spend any money because they'll spend quite quickly. We need to go to our cold campaign here, and we need to ensure that we're not showing up for our branded keywords, because we can't have brand and cold mixed. All we have to do is we go in here and we go to negative search keywords, click on search keywords and go to negative search keywords. We want to add our brand name as phrase match. Your brand name, add it as phrase match. Probably don't do it as broad match. I don't recommend doing that. Don't do it as exact match either. Do it as phrase match. So any phrase related to your brand will not show in this cold campaign. It will be funneled straight to your branded campaign. We recommend using just your brand name. However, you might have people specifically looking for specific models that you have that are branded. So you might have like a sub brand name, or people looking for a specific model that's branded to you. So make sure you include that as well if people are searching for that. But commonly you just use the brand name there and save it. That means you're not going to show up for your brand name at all inside this cold campaign. So that's how you set that up. Now, optimizing shopping campaigns. So you've got search terms, bid adjustments, and product spend. We're going to run through each of these subjects. Search terms are the most critical component of your shopping campaigns. If you've stuck around to this point of the video, you probably know that I've emphasized this quite a lot, because it's quite literally the difference between you actually being successful and not being successful. And I know that probably everyone says that on YouTube videos now, but this is the only thing that really matters alongside your product spend. But keywords that you're actually showing up for. Obviously, if you're showing up for irrelevant keywords, you're paying for irrelevant clicks. So understanding search terms and how to optimize that and how to use negative keywords is quite clearly going to have a significant impact on the relevancy of your traffic and how much it converts. You'll show up for bad keywords, so low converted keywords and high converted keywords. And that's the issue. You don't want to show up for low converted keywords, and you want to exclude as many of those as you can over time and show up for only your high converting keywords. So it's your job to filter out the bad keywords, so you most often show ads to the good keywords. So keywords your ads are showing for will only be high converting keywords over time if you can do this well. You do this through two main methods. The main method is negative keywords, so you can just refine your keywords over time. But as we said before, with your product titles and different things like that, your data feed will have an impact on this as well. Because if you've got a poorly optimized data feed, you'll never show up for the most highly converting keywords all the time, right? You'll always be a little bit behind the other people that do have an optimized data feed. Now, we've already shown you guys here. So this is some account data here where you're optimizing your search terms. We've already been through the account and optimized our search terms here, but basically you can see the cost associated with them. You can see the conversion value associated with them, the conversion value over cost, which is just ROAS. So this one's at a 4.78 ROAS, that keyword. The next one's at a 3x ROAS, and the other ones are not performing as well. You can also see, other data like your clicks and impression share and average CPC and things like that for those specific keywords. Above all else, you just want to focus on conversions and conversion value over cost, because ultimately you might have a great CTR, but if it's not converting, then who really cares? Now, if you're optimizing keywords, you want to do this every 48 to 72 hours, depending on your budget. So if you're only spending $10 per day, maybe you wait a little bit longer than that. But if you're spending up to $100 per day, do this every 48 to 72 hours, and it will be a high ROI task. It is a little bit of a monotonous task, but it'll be very high ROI in terms of making your traffic far more relevant. General rule of thumb that we use is only optimize search terms with greater than 10 impressions. So if we're looking at our search terms here, we can see how many impressions each of them have. And I know we've broken our own rule here when we'll do the example, but it's just an example. And what we can actually do is we can add a filter here so that we can only see the search terms or keywords with greater than 10 impressions. So see, this is a greater than sign here. So we just click 10. That means we can only see in our view here the impressions with greater than 10 impressions. So as you can see here, it's really refined that. And now our work's much easier. So we've only got 132 keywords here, as opposed to having, I think it was around 1,000 beforehand, right? And now we can negative keyword these out. The reason that we want to do only the ones with greater than 10 impressions is because if you were to do every keyword, so as you can see here, 2,000 keywords, there's a lot that are just getting 1 impression, 2 impression, and it's kind of just a waste of time to go through and do all of the keywords in there. You'll literally be there all day if you were to do that. So just do the ones with greater than 10 impressions, and that's the best practice there. As I said before, I spoke about in the example, some keywords being too generic or top of funnel. So this one's a little bit more advanced, but as I said, people searching for fire pit or fireplace or just fire pit, fireplace, it's just a little bit too generic or top of funnel. And it's got low buying intent because it feels a little bit more investigative, because there's fire pits that are $80 and there's 5 pits that are far more expensive than that. So that's something I'd negative keyword out. But there's also investigative keywords. So people that might be searching in this brand versus that brand, or review-based keywords, you don't want to show up for those either because they have low buying intent. Those people still might convert down the line, but if we're wasting money on people just looking for reviews or comparisons of this brand versus that brand, we really want to be cognizant of that and not spend on those search terms if we are overspending on them. Low buying intent was the short tail keywords. I gave the example. I know that's a bit of a jargony term, but 5 pits would be a short tail keyword. It's short in nature. Example keywords for a luxury luggage brand. So you might have low buying intent keywords. So some short tail keywords might be handbag, bag. A handbag could be $2,000. It could be $20. It could be $80. It could be $500 for a handbag. So if you're just showing up a handbag and spending on that quite significantly, which I have seen inside accounts, it's probably not going to be that higher converting of a search term or keyword for you. Investigative. So as I've said here, so even there's another good example here. So how big is X product? How, when, how much? Things like that. They're kind of investigative. They're looking for information rather than having high buying intent and looking to purchase. Improving your search terms using your data feed. So as I said before, if you've got an optimized data feed, you're going to have high performing campaigns, unoptimized data feed, poor performing campaigns. But what's an example of that? Example of data feed improvement. We've got product title A here. So we've got store A has indoor/outdoor electric fireplace. Not too bad of a product title, but if we wanted to optimize that, this is the exact same product here, which we actually optimize. So 100-inch outdoor freestanding electric fireplace by Dimplex. So this one's got far more detail, far more descriptors. It's got the size there. It's freestanding, so that's a USP. And it makes Google's job far easier to rank for people looking for 100-inch, people looking for freestanding, people looking for Dimplex, which is a brand that resold by this e-commerce company. Whereas this one's not going to rank as well for freestanding, even though it's a freestanding, it's the same product. Now, we set up audiences inside the campaigns there before, so you can actually set up bid adjustments. So over time, when you go inside your campaigns that you've set up, so we've set up the cold one here, we can look at the audiences here. So you can see the cost associated with specific audiences over time that you're observing, and you're able to set up actual bid adjustments. So you can actually change your bid adjustments. So I can increase, let's say the home and garden, pools and spa audience is converting really well. I can actually increase my bid for that specific audience. So if anyone's in that specific audience looking for these products, I can increase my bid by about 20% if it's converting well. And I can also decrease it if it's not, right? And you can also do that on the device level. So you can actually go inside when and where ads showed, your devices here, look at the spend level on a device level, and you can either increase or decrease your bids on the device level. You can also do time of day. I don't recommend doing that. It's a common practice for some people. Let's say if you have a sales team between 9 to 5, and that's how you make most of your sales, you can actually set up time of day bid adjustments. It's not really that necessary though. And then you've got device, which I've already been through, and then you've got location as well. So you can actually look at your location inside here. So we've got Canada here, but you can actually split that by cities. It's not going to show right now because there's no data in there, but you can actually look at your location spend and then start to bid higher on, let's say, for example, Montreal versus Toronto. Now, how to assess product spend. So this is probably one of the most needle moving things when it comes to optimizing your campaigns alongside negative keywording, right? So obviously we can define specific products that we have inside a campaign. So as we had in this specific campaign that we set up, we had saunas, infrared saunas in particular. We can actually check the specific products that are inside the campaign, how much is being spent on those specific products. Here's the example campaign that we actually set up for this particular brand. This is just a test campaign, but essentially we can see the cost associated with each product. So this one spent $50, this one spent $47, this one spent $46. So you add in column for your conversions. You can add in columns for your all conversions. You can add in your conversion value over cost. This campaign didn't get any conversions because we literally just set it up as a test, but you can see that data here and see which one's got add to carts, which one's got, the highest return on ad spend. So this one actually got 3 add to carts this campaign on really expensive products. You can see the conversions associated with each of them. You can see the revenue, so the conversion value, and then the ROAS as well. So you can actually check that inside the campaign. And this is really, really important to check because you can see which products are spending the most, which ones are spending the least, which ones are performing the best, and which ones are performing the worst. And why do you want to see that? Because you want to hone in on the ones that are performing the best, and you want to basically exclude the ones that are performing the worst. So most of the time, 80% of sales will come from 20% of products. So it's important to find out what those products are and then be able to accelerate the growth of those products. And we've done that for a number of clients and actually really been able to see amazing results by just figuring out which products work the best and then accelerating those as much as possible. So this is the Pareto principle. Roughly 80% of consequences come from 20% of causes. 20% of products are driving 80% of revenue for most e-commerce brands. Now, as I said, granular data is a gold mine. So when we're looking inside product spend here, this is a particular campaign that was set up for a client. The cost associated with this particular product here was $5,000. The goal ROAS was 4.5, and this particular product had spent $5,000. So that's a lot of spend behind this particular product, and it was exceeding the target. So it was actually exceeding that 4.5x ROAS at a 5.14x ROAS. Now, if you look at the second highest spending product here, far below that. So this product needed to be excluded from this campaign because it was far below the goal, right? So that particular product needed to be excluded from the campaign. So how do we exclude products from campaigns? So let's say, for example, we've got this product here is not performing that well at all, right? So I'd copy paste that item ID, and what I would do is go into the ad groups. I'd go into product groups. This is an all products campaign. You can go inside here, go to Empire. We can do this by item ID. So we can go in here and then we can select all the products. So we're selecting all the item IDs here. We can search for that specific one that wasn't performing well, and then we just exclude it. So then we save without editing bids, and we've saved all those products. So all the products are still included in here. However, that one that we don't want to spend on anymore is excluded. Now, if you've got it set up so all your item IDs are feeding through kind of like this, you can actually just go and find that item ID in here and you can just press exclude. So this one's not performing well at all. So you can actually look at the spend on the right hand side here, but if this one's not performing that well, you can just exclude it there. That's basically how you exclude products inside shopping campaigns, and it's quite easy to do. So as I said here, find the product ID that's performing poorly in product groups. Here is ours, and then you click the button, hit exclude. So what do we do with products that are performing above goal? So you're going to have products that are performing above goal, not just products that are performing below goal, but hopefully you're going to have products that are performing well above goal. So as we said before, that one that was driving 26K in revenue, right? And the next closest in terms of revenue driven from a particular SKU was 5.6K. We're actually looking at an extended period of time here, so over 3 months, and a hell of a lot of spend. So $5,000 of spend had been spent on that. So we can actually get that product, and we can probably accelerate the growth of that product because it's performing so well. We can segment it into its own campaign and actually allocate more budget to it and see how that performance goes, or given more budget to that product. It's a way of basically identifying what's winning, what's working, and then basically excluding that product from that campaign, making it its own campaign, or trying to accelerate that product as much as possible. We're moving into the final stage here. So expert level scaling guide for Google Shopping in 2024. So this is basically everything that we know about scaling Google Ads campaigns that we've done for a number of years. So everything will be included inside here. Vertically scaling shopping campaigns. So if you're not familiar with what this is, it just means vertically upping your budget. So increasing the spend. So it's a very common way to scale campaigns, and everyone should be familiar with this. It's quite basic. You're just basically increasing your spend if you are happy with your results. Now, one thing that is a caveat on this is that if you are getting poor results currently, so let's say, for example, you need a 4x return on ad spend. You're spending $100 per day and you're currently achieving a 2x return on ad spend. Just increasing your budget will not improve your results. So you won't go from a 2x return on ad spend to a 4x return on ad spend just by improving your budget. So that's something to consider, is that increasing your budget won't improve the performance of the campaigns. And oftentimes people think it does and it doesn't. What that's going to do is basically just give you more of the bad results you're already receiving. Now, scaling through automated bidding. So this is a really, really good strategy once you get to that point. So we spoke about bidding inside the shopping campaigns here before. So you have tROAS bidding, which is basically an automated strategy. So if you're using tROAS, you're telling Google that you want a specific revenue return on ad spend that you expect from the given budget. So for example, if you set it to 800% inside Google Ads campaign to 800%, you're basically telling Google that for every $1 spent, you want $8 in return. But there are a few considerations to take into account when you're adopting this strategy, because if you don't do it properly, it just will not work at all, and it will just stop spending because it will say, hey, we can't achieve this, so we're just going to stop spending. This is a really good strategy, and we've seen amazing results once you can switch to this, because you can actually scale your spend up and scale your revenue in a very predictable manner once you get to this stage. So the considerations for scaling through tROAS, you need at least 30 to 50 conversions in the account over a 30-day period, or the campaign. So once you can achieve 30 to 50 conversions in a campaign, you can switch to tROAS. The reason for that is because then Google has enough conversion data to be able to get you a predictable return. So some key considerations as well is that you don't want to set the tROAS to an unrealistic expectation. So if you need an 8x return on ad spend, if you're getting an 8x return on ad spend, don't just change it to 16x return because you want a 16x return. It won't work. It'll just stop spending. So that's setting tROAS too high. Setting your tROAS too low, it'll just overspend because it'll say, oh, beautiful, we're already achieving an 8x return on ad spend. You want a 6x, beautiful, we'll just spend as much as possible and achieve that 6x for you, when that might not be profitable for you. Now, the optimal tROAS is basically where you want to get to, right? So typically you want to set that tROAS at what you're currently achieving. So if you're currently achieving a 5x return on ad spend with those 30 to 50 conversions, set it at that tROAS. If you still need improvement upon that, still set it at that tROAS, and then increase that tROAS over a smaller amount of time. Always set the tROAS goal at your current ROAS. Make sure you have enough data to set this ROAS, and do not use single day or week ROAS. What I mean by that is often people look at their ROAS over the last week and go, beautiful, I'm going to set my tROAS at that. You need a sort of longer time period. So I would even look at, anything above 4 to 6 weeks. Look at that sort of data to set your tROAS. Don't look at just a week time or even a day, which would be horrible. This really helps by having a more realistic time frame. It helps Google actually achieve your target and get far more of a predictable return. When it comes to scaling your Google Shopping campaigns, I really want to talk about search lost IS rank. And I'm just going to show you inside the account what that exactly is. We go back to our campaigns here and we look at our campaign view, and we've got the shopping campaign set up here. So we just go to columns and we want to add in this column search lost IS rank. I'm going to add that column in, right? What this actually does is it tells us, and here's a Google defined term, search lost impression share rank estimates how often your ad didn't show due to poor ad rank. And typically this is to do with your bid. So it just basically determines, hey, this is how often your ad didn't show for this specific pool of keywords because of your bid. Majority of the time it's going to be your main lever there, right? It's an estimate of how often your ad wasn't the very first ad above the organic search results due to poor ad rank. Basically, it's just a percentage that tells you how high you rank for those keywords in the shopping option amongst your competitors. So let's say your search lost IS rank is 30%. That means you are only losing the first place or one of the first places in the auction 30% of the time. So you are showing up first place in the auction 70% of the time if that is your number. If you see that number there, that's quite good. Now, if you are achieving solid results, you would desire to show up more often, right? So you want to show up as much as possible in the first place in your auction. So that means you would desire to have a lower search lost IS rank, right? You want this number to be as low as possible if you're trying to really scale that, because a lower search IS rank means you are showing up more often as number one. So the biggest lever to achieving this, as I said, is an increase of your bid. So this will improve your ranking and grant you a lower search lost IS rank. I know it's a bit of a jargony term, and thus more high quality traffic. Now, this is really important. So what to consider when you're doing this? We've determined what it means, but I want to give you guys an example of what to consider. So let's say we have a product performing very well and we want to increase our bids to get more traffic for that product. Using our search lost IS ranks, so looking at that specific metric, this is a bit of flawed data here because this was just a test campaign we set up. But if you're looking at that specific metric and you see that it's 5% and you go, okay, that means I'm showing up 95% of the time. So this means if you increase your bids here, there is very little room to grow in terms of improving your ranking and getting more traffic to scale your campaigns. So you've only got 5% of room to grow. Compare that to someone who has a product performing quite well. They want to increase their bid and traffic for that product using search lost IS rank, and they see that the percentage is 60%. That means they're only showing up 4 out of 10 times because 60% of room to grow into. So they're only showing up number one in the auction 40% of the time. So that's 4 out of 10 searches. That means they can increase their bid and see a significant increase in traffic because they have 60% of searches to still show up for. So that's something to really consider, is just look at how much more room there is to actually grow. Because if it's at 5% or 10%, you haven't got that much more room to grow. And by increasing your bid, you're probably just allowing Google to charge you more for the same amount of traffic. So very, very important metric to think about. And I know it sounds a little bit jargony if you're not familiar with Google Ads. It's just about showing you how often you rank as number one. I've written number one here, but how often you rank in the first sort of couple of searches for the pool of keywords that you're showing up for in your shopping ads. So just a really important metric to look at, because it just tells you how much room you have to grow in terms of scaling those campaigns. Because if it's a really low number, you really don't have that much room to grow and you're just going to be charged a premium for the same amount of traffic. Now, SPACs/segmentation scaling. So this kind of plays off the back of accelerating the growth of those best sellers. So you're going to have good performing products, but you're going to have great performing products, and some products will perform very, very well. So how do we make the most of it? Let's say you have a product performing exceptionally well, like that product before. So the product we showed here, so 5.14 ROAS, our goal is 4.5, and it's generated the most amount of revenue out of all of the products in here, and it's got $5,000 worth of spend over a 3-month period. Plenty of data to work with there. That's a long time period. That's plenty of spend. I would consider that to be a great performer. So it might make sense to separate that specific product into its own campaign with its own budget and push that product as much as possible. And given it more budget, you'll be able to test, okay, how far can we push this product? So can we add more and more budget to this product and it still generates the same return on ad spend, still generates even more and more revenue for our business? So this is kind of the key to scaling, is just figuring out what your winners are at your product spend level and then segmenting those winners out. That doesn't mean that every good performing product you should have a different campaign for. It just means these really, really exceptional ones with plenty of data, separate them into their own campaigns. This works extremely, extremely well because you're going to have, as I said, 20% of products that are driving 80% of your revenue. So this is a case where we actually segmented this out and we achieved the same return on ad spend with about 100K in return for this client over the same time period. So no one really talks about this, but one of the beauties of shopping is, remember how we said at the start, you don't actually define the keywords you want to target. So that means that the keywords that we're showing up for, they're a bit looser. And we're going to show up for things that we might not necessarily have deliberately tried to show up for, right? And we're going to convert on specific keywords that we otherwise would not have targeted because we're not specifically setting keywords to target. So in a nutshell, there'll be specific keywords that you show up for throughout the process of running your shopping campaigns, and they will convert and show solid results, and you might not have expected them to. So think about the example of the pillowcase. They might have, over time, found that people searching in hair and skin health on Google or hair and skin pillowcase started to convert. So then they included that in their product titles. They're probably targeting that in their search ads now. So you're going to find winning keywords that you might not have otherwise found, and you're going to be able to include them in your PMAX audiences. You're going to be able to include them in your YouTube audiences, your custom audiences. You're going to be able to include them in any other audience that you want to set up for demand gen or anything like that. You're going to be able to include them in your search ad campaigns and specifically target those keywords. So we've done this many, many, many times where we've found keywords that we didn't think would convert. They start to convert, and then we start to include them everywhere else in Google Ads. And it's really just about really improving the performance of everything else through finding those keywords. So you can scale beyond shopping, and Google Shopping allows you to find those keywords that you would not have otherwise targeted. After learning all of that, there is basically nothing stopping you from going and simply taking everything in this course and using it for yourself to build and scale your e-commerce store. Now, this wasn't a VSL where I tell you the what and sell you the how on Google Shopping, but I do want to mention this and give you something to think about. You could go and implement this on your own or delegate to someone on your team and hope they go through this course and absorb all the information. Or you could have a team of seasoned professionals do a free full audit and custom action plan roadmap for your Google Ads account, where we leave absolutely no stone unturned and identify the best growth opportunities for you using sales data. We give you a clear action steps and setup that you need to take in your account to be successful with Google Ads and the exact steps you need to take to increase your performance right away. Now, the worst case scenario, you come out knowing even more about how to scale with Google Ads and basically have our exact system on how to run ads on Google. But best case scenario, we start working together and you start seeing results like you saw earlier within just 30 days and take your store to even higher highs. Now, we did recently take a client from $600K to $1.2 million a month within just 30 days. So these results are possible. Now, if that sounds interesting to you at all, there's a link down below in the description to apply to work with us. And we genuinely are limited on how many people we can work with. So if you want help scaling with Google Ads as soon as possible, and you don't want to have to sit on a wait list, go click that link to get started ASAP. And if you're not ready to scale like that yet, that's cool too. I actually have another free resource for you to check out, which is my full course on Google Performance Max campaigns. This will give you an even deeper understanding of how you can actually scale with Google Ads. So I'll see you over there, and good luck with whatever you decide to choose.